Hey everyone, and welcome to this cinematic masterclass. I'm Dr. Kem, and in today's explainer, we're diving deep into the fascinating mechanics of electrochemistry. We are going to uncover exactly how liquids transmit electricity, and maybe more importantly, how we capture and actually use those hidden metrics in modern science.
Every single liquid around us is literally buzzing with unseen electrical potential. Whether we're talking about the tap water in your kitchen, the ocean, or a highly complex pharmaceutical compound, there's this invisible electrical flow just waiting to be measured. But how exactly do we measure something we can't even see? Section 1. Principles of conductometry. Let's start our journey today right down at the microscopic level, just to get a handle on the fundamental laws that govern this invisible world.
So, conductometry is actually grounded in a really simple concept you might already know: Ohm's law, where conductance is inversely proportional to resistance. But here's the catch. In liquids, we aren't dealing with copper wires. Instead, ions act as our mobile charge carriers. It helps to think of these ions like runners in a microscopic relay race, actively passing electrical current through a solution from one point to another.
Now, the speed of this electrical relay race isn't constant. It depends entirely on four critical variables. First, how many ions are actually present? That's the concentration. Second, how fast they move, their mobility. Third, their specific electrical charge. And finally, the temperature of the environment. If you tweak just one of these factors, the conductivity of the entire solution shifts.
Section 2. Inside conductivity meters. Okay, let's see how these microscopic principles are actually built into the physical hardware we use in the lab. We basically have two main approaches to sensor design here. First, there's the amperometric, or two-electrode system. It's a pretty straightforward setup where two electrodes sit at a fixed distance and apply an alternating current directly to the solution. Then, stepping it up a notch, we have the potentiometric, or four-ring design. This one is a bit more advanced and is generally your go-to for wider measuring ranges.
Let's look a little closer at that four-electrode design because it's genuinely clever. In the potentiometric setup, the outer rings provide the push. They're the ones applying the alternating voltage. Meanwhile, the inner rings don't push at all. They just sit there and precisely measure the resulting potential drop. By completely separating the power delivery from the measurement, this design magically eliminates polarization errors. So that voltage drop measured by the inner rings, it directly tells us the exact ionic strength of the liquid.
But here's the thing. Having the right rings isn't quite enough. To get an accurate measurement, we have to match the physical geometry of the probe, which we call the cell constant, or K, to the expected conductivity of our liquid. The cell constant is just the ratio of the distance between the poles to their surface area. So logically, you'd use a probe with a very small cell constant for poorly conducting liquids, like ultra-pure water. On the flip side, you'd need a sensor with a large cell constant for highly conductive stuff, like salty brine or industrial acids.
Section 3. Conductometric titrations. Moving from hardware to methodology, let's observe what happens when chemical solutions actually battle for dominance.
Let's map out one of these chemical battles. If we look at the titration curve of a strong acid, like hydrochloric acid, being neutralized by a strong base, like sodium hydroxide, we get this very distinct V shape. We start way up high because the acid is just packed with exceptionally fast, highly mobile hydrogen ions. But as we add the base, those speedy hydrogen ions react to form water, and they get replaced by much slower sodium ions. This causes the conductivity to absolutely plummet down to an equivalence point where only sodium chloride remains. If we keep adding the base after that, the conductivity naturally rises again because we're introducing an excess of new hydroxide ions.
So you might be wondering, why go through all this trouble? Well, unlike traditional chemistry that relies on dropping in a dye and just sort of waiting for a subjective color change, conductometry doesn't care at all what the liquid looks like. This method gives us a mathematically precise, graphical endpoint even in completely murky, dark, or highly colored liquids where a standard visual indicator would be, frankly, useless.
Let's ground this with a real-world pharmaceutical application. By tracking the conductometric curve, chemists can quantify metformin, which is a really common diabetes medication. Using silver nitrate as a titrant, they track the chemical interaction that precipitates silver chloride. This graphical curve lets them strictly verify the purity and concentration of the tablets. It ensures patient safety and, again, entirely bypasses the need for a visual color change.
Section 4. Preventing measurement errors. Because as we know, with great precision comes a great need for care.
To make sure our microscopic electrical readings aren't completely ruined by basic laboratory contamination, you have to follow a strict, standardized workflow. For example, using a 4-step method like Mettler-Toledo's. You absolutely must choose the correct cell constant. Always calibrate with fresh standard solutions. Thoroughly rinse your sensors with the actual sample to stop cross-contamination, and meticulously account for temperature.
Actually, let's talk a bit more about that last point, temperature, because it is absolutely crucial. Heat speeds up our ionic runners. In fact, conductivity increases by 1 to 9% for every single degree Celsius the temperature goes up. That's massive. So, to compare readings accurately across different environments, modern meters have to mathematically compensate, adjusting all of our readings back to a standard 25 degrees Celsius reference point.
And this right here reveals just how delicate this science truly is. When you're measuring ultra-pure water, even the ambient air in the room is a threat. If atmospheric carbon dioxide, or literally just the breath you exhale, contacts the sample, it dissolves to create carbonic acid. That immediately introduces new ions and completely falsifies your low conductivity readings. No way around it. That's exactly why specialized closed-system flow cells are mandatory for pure water testing.
Section 5. Real-world industrial applications. Let's step away from the laboratory bench and look at the massive global industries relying on this technology every single day.
You can really think of conductometry as the silent guardian of modern infrastructure. In agriculture and hydroponics, it ensures the perfect dissolved nutrient in fertilizer dosing. In aquaculture, testing salinity is a matter of life and death for the osmoregulation of fish. Pharma companies use it constantly to study drug stability. And in industrial water treatment, measuring conductivity actually predicts and prevents catastrophic corrosion in huge boilers and heat exchangers by detecting trace dissolved metals.
As we wrap up this masterclass on conductometry, I want to leave you with this thought. Knowing what you know now about ions, temperature, and electrical potential, the next time you pour yourself a glass of tap water, just consider the invisible, bustling electrical universe hidden right there in your hands. What unseen dissolved solids and microscopic charge carriers are flowing through your home right now? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and definitely keep exploring the science all around you.